Hello, my name is Ysis Lorenna. Welcome back to my No Buy year. 2019 is the year I decided to stop mindless shopping, and I've been documenting my journey over the last 3 months here on my channel. I'll leave a playlist linked below if you want to catch up with the videos I've done so far, and please do hit the subscribe button. I post these videos every Friday here on my channel, so make sure you subscribe so you keep up to date with the videos. And today's video was a suggestion from one of my viewers. Elizabeth recommended I did a video decluttering my fantasy self. Have you ever heard of the fantasy self? It was a new concept to me when Elizabeth said, and I went to research it and it fascinated me. So I thought I would do my own version of this video. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the idea. So that's what I'm going to be doing today, and I hope you guys find this video interesting. If you do, remember to give it a thumbs up, and now let's get straight into the video. So what is your fantasy self? Your fantasy self is the person that you imagine yourself to be or to become. It's an imaginary version of yourself. It's not a real you. And distinguishing between real me and fantasy me is a great way not only to declutter your life, but to stop buying things that you don't need. So for example, let's say you have a huge book collection in your house. It looks really pretty. You get great feelings when you find new books to buy and put on your little shelf, but you don't really read and you haven't read in a long time. But fantasy you likes to curl up by the fireplace with a good book and a cup of hot chocolate, watching the rain outside, and you just get lost in a book. Does it ring a bell? I identify a lot with that specific fantasy self. So it's likely that fantasy you thinks that you're going to be doing this so much, but real you hasn't touched a book in 3 years, 4 years, 10 years. I think as I've got older, I've become more practical with the things that I buy, and I tend to buy for my real self nowadays more than I do for my fantasy self. But whilst I was putting this video together, I found quite a few things that I have bought over the years for my fantasy self and have kept around. The best part about confronting your fantasy self is finding out who you are and who you are not. The worst part about confronting your fantasy self, at least for me, was letting go of that potential dream of one day becoming that person. But here's what I've told myself, so I don't feel too bad about letting go of my fantasy self. That person can still exist one day. If I find myself interested in all of these things that I am not effectively and really interested right now, I can always reacquire the things that I decluttered, because I don't think I'll be getting rid of anything precious. Anything that I get rid of potentially am thinking of getting rid of is replaceable. So it doesn't mean that I'm giving up on the dream of one day becoming one of those little parts of my fantasy self. It just means that it hasn't happened for a while, and it's probably best that I make room in my life for things that are actually benefiting my real self. So here is a little glimpse into my fantasy self. My fantasy self is first and foremost a keen photographer. I have all the gear for professional photography. I have 2 DSLRs, mirrorless cameras. I have just a lot of camera equipment. But my real self has taken 99.999% of all of my photos on my iPhone for the last 4 years. Part of my heart aches thinking about getting rid of any of my cameras. Obviously, I still need cameras to do what I do, film videos for YouTube, but I've been using this same camera, this same lens that I'm using to film this video for the last however many years now, 5.5, 6 years, and my other cameras are gathering dust. I do use one other camera, like my little point and shoot camera, but I have a couple more cameras in there and lenses that I don't use. So I think it's time that I let go of my semi-professional photographer fantasy self. My fantasy self is also a very fierce, confident, strong, red lipstick wearer. I have a huge amount of red lipsticks in my makeup collection, yet I struggle to find the confidence to wear red lipstick out and about. And when I do, I only ever wear one red lipstick and this bright pink lipstick. And I will be completely honest, I made myself wear this lipstick in this video because I couldn't bear the thought of saying that I had to declutter this lipstick, because real me doesn't wear bold colors on a daily basis. This one, which is MAC, can't remember, I'll put the name here, it's a limited edition, and MAC Ruby Woo. These are the two dark lipsticks that I will occasionally wear, but everything else just is my fantasy self. That person who thinks it will look great with like a nice sort of dark eye makeup and high heels and a dress and with my hair sort of like tied back. That just never happens. My fantasy self is also an avid journal and note taker. I'm so drawn to notebooks and journals, and if they're pretty, pink, glittery, sparkly, all the better. I have so many journals and notebooks. In front of me I can see 1, 2, 3, 4. I can see 4 notebooks, and I don't use them. I use them to scribble things if I'm, like need to take note of something really quickly and I don't have my phone on me, but I don't use them to the purpose that they exist. I don't sit there and make pretty notes. I don't write journals. I use my phone notes to write most of my notes and to remember things. That is one of the things that I am not too bothered getting rid of, because I know I really don't need them and I don't use them at all. Just a quick little interruption to say that if you can hear noise, my kids are playing downstairs with my husband and they sound like they're having a great time. So I don't want to interrupt them, but you might be able to hear some screaming and shouting and yeah. Anyway, my fantasy self likes to go to cocktail parties, and she goes to these parties about 5 times a week. My real self probably goes to a smart event once a year, twice a year, I'd say. But yeah, I have so many party dresses, high heels of all colors, shapes and sizes. My high heels have actually gone up in the attic because I've been kind of reasonable enough to realize that I don't wear them, hardly ever wear them. I only have one pair that I keep downstairs for when I go out occasionally. I have far too many clothes that don't suit my actual lifestyle. I think I just like the idea of having them for if and when I need them, but I think that's the whole point of realizing that that's part of your fantasy self, not your real self, is that those occasions of when you need them are not going to come that often, and definitely not often enough to justify keeping all of these pieces of clothing, especially because I find that when I have an event to go to, I'm usually so sick and tired of the dresses that I have that I end up wanting to buy new things. And obviously I can't buy new things this year, but that's how I was last year. If I had a new event or something smart to go to, I would usually buy a new dress, and then all of these will be added on to my collection of pretty sparkly sequin dresses that I will never wear. And finally, I'm going to tell you about a fantasy self that has become a real self for me over the last 2 years. So there is hope that your fantasy self will become your real self. It's just when it's the right time in your life. So for as long as I can remember, I've thought of myself of this gym bunny who exercises pretty much every day, and I used to buy so many gym clothes and they would never get worn because I just didn't go to the gym. Then I had kids and just didn't do any exercising, let alone go to the gym, but I still kept buying those activewear pieces for, when I go for a run and all of that. So that just wasn't me. That was my fantasy self forever. And then over the last 2 years, I became more interested in exercising. And what did I do? I went and bought a couple of pieces of activewear, and this is what I've been wearing for my whole 2 years, where I've become more active. I go to the gym every week, twice a week or 3 times a week. I run. So I am my gym bunny fantasy self that I used to be. But what happened was I didn't miss those pieces that I have that I was keeping for when I decided to become a gym bunny. I actually went and bought things that were more practical and that suited what I was doing, the exercise that I was doing. So it just proves that by getting rid of the stuff that you keep for your fantasy self, it doesn't mean that these things will, you will miss them one day. It's just that you're making room for things that you already do in your life and getting rid of things that are just sitting there for a rainy day. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you found it interesting. Let me know about your fantasy self. Let me know what kinds of things you buy for your fantasy self. I think this would be so interesting to hear from you guys as well. And please do give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're new, and share this video with a friend if you think they might find this concept of the fantasy self intriguing as well. And I will see you guys next Friday for another no buy update. Bye.